You're listening to the Devil Dog Talk Show.
This show contains explicit material and is recommended for ages 18 and older for mature audiences only. But hey, it's the internet.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Devil Doc Talk Show. Today we have Bishop Foreman, the People's Bishop, and we're going to be talking about, well, him, and we're introducing him to the community and to the audience. And I was just overwhelmed by the level of not just professional knowledge, but experience that Bishop has. And so I'm going to turn it over to him. Thank you for being on the show today, Bishop
Listen,
Foreman.
super excited to be with you. I think this is going to be a really fun conversation. I love good conversation. Just let me say this before I forget. Big salute to you for doing what you do. It's more than just a notion, and I think people who create conversations are really amazing because conversations are catalysts for transformation, and you'll never know how big an impact you've had in somebody's life just being you and doing what you do. You'll never know the people you gave permission to be themselves just by you being you. So I just want to say at the top, some big salute to you and thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
It's
I
the
really
truth.
do. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's the truth.
but taking that leadership quality, that I've been reading about all the past week or weeks that we set up the show, I'm like, I really appreciate that because you're right. Conversations there are the catalyst to change. So
Yep.
that's something you have a rich history of and a wonderful experience in. How did you get started? I want to say not just in the leadership realm, but I want to say in the spiritual or religious realm.
Yeah, you know what? So the joke is I came out of my mom's room with the Bible and a briefcase in my hand. Like that's the joke. Like I was just a different kid. I had like this affinity towards spirituality that was really unique because nobody else in my family did. Nobody else in my family was a pastor, a bishop was a pastor to pastors. Nobody else had ever done any of those types of things. And then I had this affinity towards success and business and entrepreneurship. And while there were many in my family that, had dabbled into it, none that really got into it at the level that I did and created, some of the businesses that I did. And so it was really just this unique combination that I think everybody's got it. That was just mine. Mine was spirituality and success. Everybody else has got it. Maybe it's funny and, creative, or maybe it's this and that. Everybody's got your own difference. And I think what I had to learn is not to demonize my difference, not to look at it like, what's wrong with you? Instead of looking at it as this is where your sweet sauce is. Like this is your Thousand Island dressing on your Big Mac. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is your secret sauce. And that's just been my secret sauce. I think everybody's got it. You just have to figure out what it is and not be tempted to duplicate what you see somebody else do or be somebody else be. And so that's just really what I've been doing since I was a kid. I was born in Denver, raised in Memphis. So, coming up in Memphis, the community there, was one of the inner city communities that, immediately post slavery in America, it was a huge bustling area, very financially prosperous area for particularly Blacks, African Americans. And as happens with many of those areas, it went through, systematic and systemic, changes that created an area that wasn't the best area to grow up in. So I saw some crazy stuff coming up as a kid. And I just looked at that. And sometimes I think the gift we're given is the gift of what not to do, who not to be, what not to do, those types of things. And so I looked at that, and like I said, I was just different. I was the type of kid who you mentioned. I like the term spirituality because to me, religion, that term, while I don't think it's a bad term, I think the reality is for many people, you always must just holler at them and scream and call them out their name because for many people, when they hear that word, they have a preconceived construct of what that means. And so, not that I think it's a bad word. And, but for me, I really, was just different. I was the kid that was, I was watching, there was this preacher used to come on Friday nights and he was in California and his show, he had this theme song. It was like evidence, doom, 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 evidence. Like it was this real official, that's how the tune went, right? But as a kid, I thought they were saying Bennigan's. You remember the restaurant? Bennigan's?
Bennigan's?
Yeah, vinegar. So I
Yeah.
thought, so like, if I was not like until like 16 before I realized that this whole time they were saying evidence, and I thought they were saying Bennigan's. And I always wonder, like, why in the world? I know that's crazy, right? Like, why are they saying Bennigan's at the start of this preaching show? Like, this is
Got to
crazy.
do the promos. He's got to get that sponsorship.
Listen, look, man, look, gotta get the Derek. Now, let me tell you, their Monte Cristo was amazing. I remember that from Bennigan's. But at any rate, yeah, I was just different. I was a different kid. And and I had to learn not to demonize that. And my entire life, from Memphis to Denver, and now we moved our headquarters to Atlanta, Georgia. My entire life has really been down that path of recognizing that my life was bigger than me. And so, if life is only about you, you're going to have a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of sadness, because it's only about you. I think we're all built to pour. And when we're pouring, I think that's when we are our best. And when you pour, you get poured back into. It's like being a river versus a reservoir. This is how I've chosen to live my life.
That is beautiful because
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful way of looking at not just life and spirituality,
Yeah.
but even currency and business, right? You're a successful business entrepreneur and you understand the dynamics of finances.
Yeah.
I find that to be very important, especially with the spirituals
Yeah.
people, right? Because you're right, religion, it does have a bitter taste at times, right?
Yeah.
It's history. Okay, it's
Yeah.
got lots of it.
Oh yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
spirituality is this layer of both God and yourself where you could intertwine in your daily living or whatever it is you got going, such as your music, right? You
Yeah.
got music, you got books, you got again entrepreneurial stuff where you're like very, very, very well attuned to that whole atmosphere, the
Yeah.
environment. But then you're maintaining that truth, that sense of who you
Yeah.
are, much like you said when you were a kid, you're just different, right?
Yeah.
And I love that because I was watching one of your YouTube lives the other day and I was like, hey, this guy I could listen to all morning, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I love that.
just so you know, right? I'm
Yeah. I
listening.
love
I'm like
that.
all morning. And I'm just like doing my morning ritual, getting my stuff situated and my medicine. My wife helps me out of bed and we get all situated. And I just put it on and I was like, wow, and you're just going. It's just
Yeah.
it didn't feel like forced. It was just
Yeah.
this natural spirituality coming through you,
Yeah.
like you said, pouring out. And here I am just like receiving and going, wow, I get to talk to this guy this week.
Yeah. Oh man. Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing to hear. Thanks for sharing that with me. Is that what you just said? Like that's the motivator for me.
Mm,
So, I'm not motivated by I'm not motivated by fame. I'm not motivated by fortune. I'm not motivated by accolades. In fact, when I do a lot of these shows and they read me, the list of things that I've done as they're doing the introductions and all that, I'm like, oh, yeah, I did that. Oh, yeah. And I don't say that like in an arrogant or an aloof way. It's like I am so focused on, like, literally, it's written into my notes that I exist to change lives. That's why I'm here. And so that gives me such a joy. And you can see it. I'm like this all the time. You've seen me. I'm like this
mm.
all the time. This is not like an on camera beat. Like I am this way all the time. Like at 9 o'clock, I'll have friends or family or whatever tell me like, are you always like this? And that's just, to me, like life is a gift. And wouldn't it be sad to get through life and have never lived it? Wouldn't it
Absolutely.
be sad to like go every day and have only breathed and existed and never lived life? And that's the truth. And I love what you said about spirituality because I believe we're tripart beings, right? It's a biblical principle, but we are spirits. We have physical bodies that we live in, and we possess souls, which is our mind, thoughts, will, and emotions. When you see yourself that way, and you see yourself as a spirit, that means everything is spiritual. Everything is spiritual. And so the ability to connect with people, the ability to enjoy life, all of that comes from this spiritual place. And so for me, that's why I prefer that. And not that I think religion or religiosity is a bad word. I don't think any of those are bad words. I just recognize that if it's only something you practice on a Sunday, well, then no wonder why it's difficult for people to practice. If it's only something you do to be performative, like let me do my good Christian duty, let me do my good Christian stuff. If it's only performative, well, then no wonder why, we got the you over here and then the you over here. And we're trying to figure out which one of you it is, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not you. It is something you're doing versus something you are. Yeah.
You nailed it. Like for me personally, that word performative, I've been saying it for quite some months in a lot of different aspects, not just in in the spiritual aspect or life, but in the integrity and accountability aspect towards
Yeah.
just right now in the United States of America, right? It's
Yeah.
it's a tumultuous time. It's
Yeah.
it's a boiling point once again.
Yeah.
I think these happen every so often, but they seem to be kind of turning up. And this is all in the Bible,
Yeah.
whichever one you want to read, right?
Yeah.
And this is kind of the best point about like how you're saying it's this thing that you practice and it becomes a part of you, not
Yes.
this oh, I'm wearing my Sunday's best and I'm coming in and, I'm looking at her and them and I'm like, I
Yeah.
saw them last night in the club, right? And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, right.
and you're sitting there like, hey, like, dude, we were both there. Like, I
Right.
was there, you were there.
Right.
We
If
had a
I
great
saw you, then right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, just because I didn't change, like not my clothes, but like my
Yeah.
personality, people
Yeah.
take it differently. And I love that aspect of, again, spiritualism, being a leader, a pastor of pastors.
Yeah.
I had to look up what the word bishop meant.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And then
I love
I
it.
read your press kit and it says it right there for me. And I'm like, well, I didn't need to Google that.
That's okay. It's all right to trust but verify. It's good.
No, it's good
Yeah.
because when I'm learning new things, it takes me repetition, right? So just
Too.
like spirituality, if you're not practicing it, if you're not putting in
Yeah.
or applying it, practice is one thing, but applying it,
Yeah.
that's where that grace happens. That's when you
Yeah.
start pouring and your cup fills up and things are
Yep.
going good, or sometimes things get worse before they get good.
Yeah.
But that spiritualism and drive, how do you center yourself, let's say
That's,
through these difficult times, right?
yeah.
You brought up a very good point. Atlanta's going through changes. They have been. The Black community goes through changes, and that's just been life for the Black community.
Yeah.
How do you, as a person that is a leader of leaders, a bishop, a pastor of pastors, a bishop, how do
Mhm.
you help your congregation, your people, find that messaging, or the consistency to follow?
You know what? I think the first thing is being it. Back to that whole concept of performative. Like consistency is like my middle name. So, perfect, absolutely not. Consistent, absolutely. And I think, when you say how do you help people to find that, sometimes things are better caught than taught. Sometimes I don't need you to tell me how to do it. I need you to show me how to do it. Be the example. And I think you see this in every area, not just that area, but in any area. For a child, their father can tell them stuff all day long. Their mom can tell them stuff all day long. That's very different than them seeing it modeled, than them seeing what to do in a company. When you're training people, there's the old training model which says I do it, you watch, you do it, I watch, and that type of a thing, and then you do it. And so the whole concept is certain things are better caught than taught. And so as a leader, I strive to do that. So I don't just teach it so that it's just this wonderful thing that I'm on some high horse, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. It is let me do my best to model it. Let me do my best to show consistency. Let me do my best to show what it looks like to navigate through difficulties and remain consistent. And I think that's something that and especially in culture today, we lack, because just look at it even from a social media standpoint. The algorithm's constantly changing, which means people have to constantly change, which means people are not used to being consistent to anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reprogramming of our mindset. So the whole goal is now I got to change to be this. I got to dress like this. I got to say this. I got to do this. I got to use this clickbait. I got to do all these things. And I understand it is what it is. You got to do what you got to do. But that's subconsciously programming us to believe that that's life. So this is why you see so many inconsistent people. You see divorce rates going up. You see just inconsistency across the board going up. And what does that tell us? That there is a general lack of the belief that consistency is rewarded. There's a general lack of belief that persistence is rewarded, which is why somebody will try something one day, it doesn't work. Oh, I'm done. I'm not supposed to do that. Are you joking? Like at the end of the day, like you'll never know what it could be, because I think most people have been trained and programmed to give up before they ever see what something could really develop into. So to answer your question, I strive to model it, number one. And then number two, my messaging is always consistent. Like even with everything happening in America, everything. And again, you mentioned, especially for, the Black African American community, listen, I'll just speak as plainly as I can speak. Like, it doesn't take a lot let me say it this way. A lot doesn't shake, and I'll say us just because I'm Black. A lot doesn't shake us because we've been through so much. So it takes a lot more to shake us because we know how to survive. We know how to thrive. We know how to take nothing and turn it into something. We know how to win even when the wind is against you. But I think the reality is when I look at who I lead white people, Black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, people on all the continents. We even have people in Antarctica who are part of Harvest. Now, I want to know who that is. I said, I still don't know yet. And I want to know what you're doing down there. That's what I want to know. We still don't know who it is, but we can see it on the map, right? And so that being said, I say to every culture, to every race, to every background, to every person, regardless of what that background is, that the reality is there's always going to be something going on. That's the nature of the world. That's the nature of human beings. The question is not what's going on, but how you're going to maximize it and how you're going to navigate through it. Those are the only two questions you have to be concerned about. Because if not, you'll just be stressed out all day. Like turn the news on and watch the stress level go up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bad. Like I stay out of the news, but then there's just these force-fed moments when I'm doing something, and then as I'm doing an interview or something,
Mhm.
something pops up, and the person's like, "Did you just see this?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"No."
Right.
And then for the absolute lack of, I guess, even trying to figure it out, it's just overwhelming. All of the
Mhm.
situations, and that's the reason I really love how you express that. It's not so much being a perfect, right, but being that consistent and showing up, and then driving that message that although we've been through, right, us humans, right,
Yeah.
communities,
Everybody. Yeah.
all the different persons you can identify as or from. I think it's more important, like you're saying, to find that commonality of faith, right, in Christ, Lord Jesus, and Almighty God, and then walking that path, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to be a perfect, you don't have to be a saint to become a saint, right? That's the thing that I grew up learning about Catholic Church, right? The saints weren't saints when they were
Right.
born, okay? It
Yeah.
wasn't, some of them weren't the best of people.
No. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I love what you're saying because I think that is one of the things that sometimes becomes very confusing, which going back to where we started of why I typically don't like to use the word religion because
Mm,
today religion, just to be quite frank about it, in many ways has been hijacked and made and politicized so that what does that mean? So when you say you're a Christian, what does that mean? Does that mean you vote this way, you think this way, you for this person, you for that person? And what I've learned is that, listen, there's nothing to win by taking sides. So we have a saying that we've had for years is we don't take sides, we take over. Because our approach is this, is that at the end of the day, um, you don't get to weaponize our Christianity to be a political ploy. So you just don't get to do that. You don't get to, and here's another thing, you don't get to legislate morality in the sense that you're going to make people do what you think they're supposed to do because like, come on, man, get up off of that. And I say that in a cavalier way on purpose because I think for many people, that it all just gets, and when that happens, it becomes very difficult to say, okay, so what do I believe? What do I stand for? Who am I? Like all of that can become very convoluted, especially in when people intentionally create culture wars so that it now makes it say, well, if you believe this, you got to be on this side. If you believe this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I say to everybody watching, those are lies. Number one. Number two, the reality is that all of us have way more in common, regardless of your background, than we do different. We all basically want the same things. It's just that simple. And back to your question about consistency, I think the best thing we can all consistently do is live life as students. I think the reason there's so many issues is because everybody thinks they're an expert. And the problem with being an expert is that you have what's called confirmation bias, which means everything you see is only there to confirm what you've already pre-decided you believe.
mm.
And the danger with confirmation bias is that it doesn't allow you to see anything differently. It doesn't allow you to learn. It doesn't allow you to grow. And so you will fight against yourself because your confirmation bias has told you this is what you have to do. You'll do things that are against your own self-interest. And so that goes on, that we can go on that for days. But I think the real thing is to what you said, is recognizing that commonality, recognizing even from God, God's not looking for perfect people. This is not what he's looking for. Because if so, well, let's just close up shop, shut it down. Because that's not
Right.
happening. Like that's the whole reason he came, right? That's the whole reason he bled, and that's the entire thing. So the question becomes: if salvation is not the end game, but it's the beginning, then what do we do once we're saved? What do we do once we know it? And I think that's the real question. Because for most people, salvation is the finish line. I'm saved. I know the Lord. No, that's the starting point. We're not saved just from something. We're saved for something.
Oh, I love that. because when you express it that way, right, it's not just in the acts of salvation. It's
Hmm.
in the acts of acting in good faith and doing and living your fruits and that faith of fruits that
Hmm.
create. And
Yeah.
that's where I sit back some days and I go, nobody knows this because I don't go and publicize it, right? But the
Hmm.
podcast started because I wanted to serve God, my community, and help save lives, right?
Wow.
And I became a pastor back in 2011 or 12. And when I talk about it, people go, "Oh, so you know all the Bible, you know all the different." I'm like, "No, man. All
Right.
I know is how to walk that path, and then
Right.
I can
Right.
give you some books and stuff." But hey, with my TBI and stuff, I'm doing as good as I can get, right? The whole perfect attitude, like it's just impossible.
Right.
But the living of it, right? The walking that path and lifting people up and pouring into others, that is how you find him. That's how you live in his name, and that's how you serve God, right? Because it's not like you said, it's not the end, it's the start. It's
Yeah.
the start. That is just boom.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Simple mindset shift. I have this saying that says big doors swing on small hinges. And sometimes we're so focused on the door that we don't even recognize that door is not going to do anything if those hinges aren't right. And I think it's those small hinges, just a simple thing. Like I'm not just saved from something, I'm saved for something. It's a 4 letter and a 3 letter word, but they change. There's that small little hinge changes the whole door because for many people, because they see that as the end, now they see it as their responsibility to now make everybody conform to what they think morality is and what they think people are supposed to do. And I'm like, well, if God gives people choices, I said before you, Deuteronomy 30:19, life and death, the blessing of it. If God gives people choices, like, so who are you to decide that, well, now they don't need any more choices about life. They don't need to choose anything. I'm going to choose for them because this is what they're supposed to do. And this is not just from a political standpoint, a policy standpoint, just a personal, everyday standpoint. Like, how many people are mad at somebody or angry with somebody that is a loved one, a family member, a friend, because they're doing something that they did to be immoral or wrong or sinful or this or that. And it's like Jesus said, right? You're looking at the speck in their eye. What about that? For those listening, you can't see. I just put up a huge portfolio up to my face. What about that huge thing in your eye? Like, deal with that. And it goes back to where we started, spirituality. I'm not performing. This is who I am.
Mm.
Consistency. I'm consistently showing up, doing what I can do to better the lives of other people. And I recognize that at the end of the day, I am consistently living as a student. So I'm competing with yesterday's version of myself. I don't have time to beat you down if I'm getting yesterday's version of myself together.
That's amazing, right? That to me is not just the gospel, it's the testimony, it's the end all be all. Show up, be better than yourself the day you were yesterday, but understand that the day today might not go even better, right? But
Right. So
you
true.
gotta have the attitude, and no
Yeah.
matter what it is, this is the reason why I wanna kinda talk about the Harvest,
Yes.
Institute. Did I get
Yeah.
that right? Okay.
Yeah. We got a few things. We got Harvest Bible College. We got Harvest Church. We got Harvest Leadership. We got a few things. We can hit any of them.
Absolutely. What is that leadership course? Because you're kind of explaining the way the philosophy, right?
Yeah.
The approach of, don't judge or lest thou be judged, just serve and, that's how you got to do it.
Yeah.
How did that come about? How did Harvest come about? And then how did that leadership kind of develop?
Yeah, amazing question. So I didn't want to be. So I got into ministry at 12 as a musician. And I got into ministry because a friend and he and I were very competitive. He was an actual musician. He played drums and organ and some other stuff. Like a Hammond organ is what they call. So so people to separate like a pipe organ, the big thing that you see in more like older style cathedral-esque buildings. They play the Hammond organ. So it's like a Pentecostal Baptist thing, right? So a charismatic thing. And so he played. I did not play. I tried trombone, saxophone, trumpet, all of that. And I was like, I don't like any of these. None of these work. He gets a drum set one year. And I'm like, well, I want a drum set. And so, my stepfather and mother said, you know how to play drums. I said, but I'm going to learn. We go to the music store, pick out the drum set. I don't know the first thing about playing drums. So I start watching the guy at church play drums. His name is Stan. And the only reason I mentioned his name is because one day I've been trying to find Stan for years. I haven't been able to find him. I have to tell him thank you. Because again, how I started the show with you, He was just doing what he was doing. He didn't know there was a kid that was watching him do what he did. And I studied him. He was a left-handed drummer, and he would move his shoulder like this when he was playing the drums. I just thought it was the coolest little move. I was like, that is so smooth. And so I learned how to play drums as a left-handed drummer because I watched him and studied him. Like everybody listening, you don't know who is watching you and studying you, and you are giving them the framework for their future. And you just think you're doing you. And that's again, when you recognize life is bigger than you're giving people the framework for their future. Long story short, I do that. Eventually, I'm inducted into the Colorado Gospel Music Hall of Fame for keys and music and choirs and all of that, and write songs and all of that. Start my first business when I was 12. Also, at the time I'm 21, we built Denver's largest African American owned real estate finance brokerage or mortgage company. And all of that happens. And then I watch the industry that I was in, the entire industry just collapses. It wasn't just our company, the industry collapses, like quite virtually, and in many ways, literally like over the weekend. And so to get to your question, I'm like, okay, so what next? And I knew that I would eventually start a church, but I just didn't think I'd do it when I did it. I thought it would be something later on down the road. Like I'll do this later on down the road, but like, let me, I'm doing so great in business. I'm doing so great in these other things. Like, that's not something I want to do right now. Well, God had a different plan. We get started. We start from scratch with nothing. It's called a parachute church plan. So it's basically you just start and you literally start with nothing. And that's what we did. And it's one of those things where when I look back, I was like, God, why didn't you have me to start this when I was at like the zenith of our business success? Like it's an inversion. And you want me to do this when we're in a valley. Like, why did you not have me to do this when I was at a mountaintop? And I really believe that that was necessary for me to really surrender and to do it, because the truth is had business continued to be successful, I would not have done it. That's just the fact. Because I would have said, but business is doing too good. And it's not that I wasn't chasing money, because the reality is I was the biggest giver, and I was a giver then, I'm a giver now. So it's not because I was chasing money. I liked winning. I liked building things. I liked seeing success. And I was hiring a lot of people and helping them to create a whole new life they didn't even know was available. So when I'd open a new office, I would, obviously people needed skill, but I would go after people who, were often marginalized, overlooked, and we would go after them and give them opportunities. So I liked the whole ecosystem of help. Again, back to what's in my notes. I exist to change lives. So I loved seeing that. I loved seeing somebody go from catching the bus to now, they're able to move in a whole new way of life. Like that was intriguing to me, exciting to me. And we eventually plant the church, and we start. With the first week we start on Saturday nights. First week, like 100 people show up. And that's because we had every dancer, every every poet, every singer. I mean, like everybody that did anything we could get, we stacked that service. The next week, there were like 7 people in church. I preached to those 7 people like they were like 7,000. Now I'm going to keep it real with you and your audience. I still didn't really want to do it. I was doing it, but I didn't really want to do it. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this until I have another exit. Right? Like, this is not, I don't want to do this. Like, God, I want to do something else. This is not something I want to do, because I know the price that you pay. A lot of times people, especially on social media, when you look at pastors, there's a lot of negative narratives. But the reality is that's a few people. The majority of pastors deal with a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, are constantly, and this, are constantly held to a standard by their people that their people don't hold themselves to, are constantly expected to be perfect, are constant, all of that. So pastors, doctors, and lawyers have the highest occurrences of suicide, drug abuse, and alcoholism. Think about that. 3 roles who their entire thing is to help people.
Yeah.
Like literally, in many ways, like don't like their own lives. I mean, I was like, this is crazy. I was like, I don't want to do this. That's something I want to do. I was like, I'll be a number 2 and like help somebody else do it. But I didn't have a desire to do that. Let me tell you how much I didn't want to do it. There would be times. You familiar with Medea, the character, Tyler Perry character?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very,
So
very
there would
well.
be, okay, got it. So there would be Saturday nights where I was like, we're going to do something different, right? And so we open the service, we do praise and worship, we do all of that. And then I said, for today's message, we're watching Medea.
I love it.
So we put Medea up on the screen. we'd watch Medea, and that was church, and we were like, "That's church today." Thanks, everybody. And at the time, I was like, "Yeah, this is so different." In hindsight, I was like, "That was just nuts. That was crazy to do." But that's how much I did not want to do that. And then I simply realized this: the way I tell the story is, God basically backs me in a corner and says, "You can do whatever you want to do, but this is your only option." And so I surrendered and I said, "Okay, fine, let's do it." And I thought at that moment that just the floodgates were going to open up and everything was going to happen. I just thought, no. And I love what you mentioned earlier. It didn't happen that way. But over time, we began to see amazing things happen. You fast forward 20 years later, you've seen almost 13,000 salvations or professions of faith we've been able to record, almost $1 million given in missions, both domestic and abroad. Over 250,000 pounds of food given away, and almost 250,000, articles of clothing, all those different things. I may be getting a couple of numbers transposed. It's amazing to see what's happened. 2025, 1,859 decisions are made. At the time we're recording this, we're almost to 100 decisions at the top of a brand new year. And so it's amazing to see what has happened in that time. And it's just one of those things where I like to tell people the truth, because a lot of people sell you the highlight reel. They don't tell you all of the background stuff. And to me, it's like, I don't care about the highlight reel. Tell me where it hurt. Tell me where the pain was. Tell me that you didn't want to do it. That's the stuff that inspires me, because that's the real stuff.
No, that's amazing because I relate to that so much, not just in the spiritual path, but the entertainment, the conversational path, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yes.
It's like there's so many expectations that people have, and I go, if I was different, I would say different, different stuff in different times, but I'm not, and that's what I love about how
Mhm.
you serve, right? It's you
Yeah.
didn't want to do it, you put on Medea, but you're like, all right, man, I really got to pull my stuff together here.
Yeah.
Clearly, this is the only option,
Yep.
right? And I noticed that God speaks in this profound way where it's very quiet at first, but then it's undeniable. There's
Undeniable.
no there's no wiggle room, right? You
Yep.
could, like you said, you can make the decisions you want, but you're
Yep.
going to be doing it out of self-destruction,
Yep.
malice, right? Like you said about the pastors and everybody else,
Yep.
drinking, drugs, suicide, right?
Crazy.
Suicide prevention is one of our biggest things that we discuss
Mm.
because out of the years that I've been doing the show, the consistent number of suicides per year is between 6,500 and 8,500 a year.
Mm. Mm.
This is a small town every year. Okay.
Mm.
So for 13 years, let's just imagine, I'm not going to do the math, but that's a lot of thousands, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you think about it, you have to really slow it down and go, well, what is that? Why is that the military is doing this at this much rate, right?
Yeah.
And the percentages for certain roles, like you were saying, pastors, doctors, dentists, certain persons, right? What is that? What it is this loss of faith where the external world, right, is maybe mirroring an internal in conflict where you're like, man, who or what am I? How am I going to preach? How am I going to pastor? How am I going to be that bishop, right? How am I going to be that man that creates,
Yep.
not just feels? Because we all feel it, right?
Yep.
Like you said, you didn't want to do it. You're like, ooh, I'm gonna be a substitute teacher right now. Put on the dia, right? And you're going like, all right, dude, let me get it together. How was that decision made? What was that moment where you were like, okay, I'm going all in. I got to lock in. This is me. I got to build that man that I need to become.
Yep. I think it really, I think it really is this. I think it was, once we got started, so it was like May of 2006. And in my mind, this is the next thing that I will do, but I don't see, I didn't see it at that time that this would be what would, now 20 years in it, um, that this would be, what I would do. I didn't see it that way. It was really around that time. And I began to go through unexpected loss. You got to think, building a business up, you build a lifestyle that is, tantamount to this business that you built. I remember going through some things on the financial front, right? So, I mean, literally, you got to shut down an office, then you got to shut down another office, then you got to basically move the office into your home and all of that. And I remember going through a period where at one point I was like, okay, Bible says a man that doesn't work doesn't eat. So I was like, I like to eat. So, so, so I got to work. And so, I am applying for jobs and get a couple of jobs, so like the first time in my adult life, I am working for someone. And those scenarios, again, because of the same industry, they didn't last long because the same industry, it was dominoes. So it was a matter of time. And so I remember then faxing out. So this is before Indeed and Monster and whatever else. So this is when you use a fax resume. Usually you have to go on a paper and look up the job listings and get phone numbers and like all that and faxes. And so you fax a resume. And I fax my resume and I fax like 40 a day. Nothing. Domino's pizza. And this is before they were good. This is the old recipe Domino's. This is not the brushed crust Domino's. This is the like, who is cooking this Domino's, right? Domino's wouldn't let me hire pizza or deliver pizza.
Oh,
Companies
Lord.
would contact me and say you are overqualified, and I was like, you guys aren't very good business people. I said you should bring somebody in overqualified that you can pay less. I won't stay there forever, but bring them in to improve your systems, improve your structure, bring me in to improve everything, and then you got more than your money's worth. I said this, you're not getting it, and type of thing. And I remember thinking, okay, God, this is crazy. And I'm an entrepreneur at heart, right? So, I would start businesses. I remember one time I saw this infomercial for like a satellite, thing where people get satellites and they'll like basically like affiliate marketing, but not with links how you do it today. It was like you go set this thing up in a dry cleaner, set this thing up, and so I was like, okay, great, I'm gonna spend some money on that and set this business up. And just, listen, I tried tons of things, and I said nothing's working. And I remember I'd gotten down to sort of the last pot of resources. And I said, okay, like, what do you want me to do? And listen to this. I mean, because people think, okay, everybody that knows stories is waiting on me to say, and when I got down to that, that's when the magic happened. No, let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you what happened. That's when the breakthrough happened. No, let me tell you what happened. What happened is we spent probably half of that last pot. On this event and this event planner and all of that. We just thought, okay, I do this event. It's gonna be great. We'll reach all these people. All these people are gonna get saved. People are gonna come to the Lord, and boom, we're gonna take off. She schedules the event at a venue that is in downtown Denver during the weekend of NASCAR, where downtown Denver is basically, what's the word? Sectioned off, partitioned
Yeah.
off, whatever. You can't, it's 3 hours to get past this because NASCAR's got a big circle going on around the city, right? So to get into downtown, you got to penetrate this thing, and you're 3, 4, 5 hours on the highway type thing.
Oh, my God.
So I finally get down there and I'm like, what is going on? Where are the people? What's happening? What's going on? And I'm like, we spent thousands of dollars on this thing. And it was a total bust. And so I'm thinking, okay, she's crying. I'm like, this is my money. What are you crying for? You know what I mean? So I literally am like, and I remember like it was yesterday. We're in the parking lot and I'm getting in my truck. And she's over there crying, and I'll be honest, I had zero sympathy for her. I was like, I have zero sympathy for you. You should have planned this better. Like, you're crying. Listen, because the event didn't happen. I'm crying because I got to pay for all this. Right? It was a brand new church. All the money's coming out
Everybody's
of my
crying. Yeah.
everybody crying.
Oh,
And so, and it was right around that time. I said, okay, all right, God, right back to my story. God, you backed me into a corner in the sense that you're my only option. I've done everything I know to do. I didn't just sit back and be a victim and woe is me. I've done everything I know to do. I fought everywhere I know how to fight. I've tried and knocked on every door I know how to knock on. This is the only thing that you've left in front of me. So I said, I'm going to go in all in. I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to be the best at it. And I'm going to do my best to reach people. And it was really that breaking point that happened for me to where I said, okay, clearly you want me to do this because this is the only thing. And sometimes we have to look at life, that life isn't falling apart. It's coming together. They just feel the same. They feel the same. And because it felt like falling apart. I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking all around. And I'm like, what is going on? But the reality is it was coming together. It was getting me in alignment for what my purpose and assignment would be. And when I began to do that, that's when the breakthrough moments began to happen. And we began to see amazing things happen in Denver, which is a place 46 out of 50 for lowest church attendance in the nation. And we saw God do something that is unprecedented and amazing. And now we've moved our headquarters to Atlanta, and we're excited to see what's next. But even in that, we built this hybrid movement, which to your question about Harvest Church and Bible College and all the things that we do, and to where out of the people who are connected, they're across America, around the world. So you can't even lock us down to a zip code. Like there's no place I go, I don't run into people that are part of Harvest. And that is no cap, as they say. That's not a lie. Every place we go, there's always people that I run into. Bishop. I'm like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I watch you every day. I watch you all the time. I mean, people walk up to me in the gym. People who you know how sometimes you kind of think you know who a follower of somebody might look like. Oh no, it's black, white, tall, short, every educational background. A guy walked over to me, and just he turns his phone towards me, and he holds up an image of me. And he's like, is this? I was like, that's me. And he's like, oh my God. He said, I just moved here from Indiana and you helped me get through a divorce. And I can't wait until you post every day. Like, he said, let me prove it to you. He opens up his Instagram. He says, look. And again, I was like, this is why. This is why. Because you never know whose life you are literally impacting. And it's not about my glory. It's about his glory.
That's wonderful to hear, because when you think about it, right, that's the goal of all pastors, of all spiritual persons who are just trying to live life the best we can and also spread God's word, right? And say, hey, look, I don't got the answers, but I can tell you what, you start reading this thing a little bit more often, you start, listening to Bishop about a little bit more, right? And if you tuning in, then you can really say, hey, oh no, I get what he's saying now. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I meant by earlier,
Yeah.
right? Watching the live, I'm just like, in it, right? I'm doing my thing, but I'm in it, right?
Yeah,
And I go, I don't see many pastors, I don't see bishops, I don't see many social people, right? Just actually speaking truth, right? Like the facts that you said, dude, everybody's crying. Okay, it was the perceived low point, but I guarantee you a lot more came.
Oh yeah.
And before you have those fruits, right, you got to do that labor. And I think that's the scariest part of blessing is God prepares you, but you may not be prepared for what that preparation may be, right? It's not easy going, especially when you say, you know what I'm going to do, I'm going to start living for Jesus Christ and God. And then oh yeah, hey, everybody just paid attention to you, including the evil. Okay, like, so God's like, yeah, that's my dog, but PS, watch out now. And
exactly.
It's real, because like what you were saying, the gentleman comes up to you and it's like, you got me through a divorce, right? And I'm like, yeah, because you're speaking truth to a situation where people are lost. You brought it up about divorce rates throughout the United States, but honestly, I think it's just men and women. We're not living to those roles, right? I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a perfect man, but I'm definitely a lot better off than most men that I see doing things, because I see the reason and drive why they do it. And I go, hey, that's some juvenile stuff, right? Right before the show, I was reading, I think it's Corinthians 13, without love, the clinging symbol, and all that good stuff, right? And I just open my Bible all day, every day. I keep it right here, right? As soon as I feel a fluster or I start having flashbacks, I have bad flashbacks, right? And I'll sit there and I'll be like, okay, cool, that's nice. Oh, hey, look, Jesus has helped me out, right?
Yeah.
And it turns into something that this Bible that was given to me by the Gideons as I was deploying, right? It was given to me as a gift, to get me home, not just in the sense of home, right? But in the sense of home, right? And the way that I always refer back to it was Luke 12:22. Don't worry about your life, right? And then I stopped, because every time I try to read more, it just is more profound. But that realization when I came home in 06, so that's really great that you brought up 2006, right? May. And I'm like, yeah, June, we had a horrible event during our deployment. And I turned to God for the rest of the deployment in ways that I never thought I knew how to, right? And I would go to the church. It was called the the Soul Train. Okay.
Wow.
Yes. So in Al Qaim, Iraq, right? It was a train station, and in the train station, they still had carts up. So they were like train carts, right? They modified a train cart to be essentially a church, right? Eventually, during that deployment, we did build up a little wooden shack church that was beautiful. Well, to us, because we
Right.
knew what it meant to build that there.
Right.
And it was such a beautiful time because as things occur, as they do in war, we realized that the men that always came to church, right, and the ones that walked around and checked on their dudes and
Yep.
reminded them about Sunday service, or even the evening service or memorial services or
Mhm.
everything that we had going on, you saw the best in people, right? And I saw the best in people that we were going through in a time that was just the worst, right? And
Mhm.
you're losing friends and brothers and
Mhm.
sisters in ways that you should never be a witness to. But the worst part is that war doesn't discriminate. It's
Mhm.
very, very much so just an open field that when something happens, it really hurts to see or say that yes, collateral damage occurs,
Mhm.
because that is the that is the consequence of our actions. Okay.
Mhm.
Like in anger, like people
Mhm.
use anger and be like, well, I'm not too angry. Well, yeah, but even a bullet going in a direction is very
Mhm.
bad. Okay. Right.
Mhm.
Drive-throughs, drive-bys,
Drive-bys,
right?
yeah.
All the different stuff that happens.
Yep.
I was telling my kids, when I was younger, we would hear about stories. My mom grew up in all throughout Tracy, but her family was in South Central LA, I want to say, on the other side. And my mom would always bring up, stories about,
Mhm.
different things that happened in her life. And
Mhm.
one of them were, hey, the kid was just sitting there, playing inside the
Yep.
house, right?
Yep.
Gone. Why?
Sure would. Yeah.
Because somebody's getting angry and doing something stupid. So
Mhm.
I see that as a correlation of both what we do on scale as a
Yep.
nation and then what we do as people on a micro level. And I go, what would stop that is men looking and turning to bishops like you to say,
Mhm.
hey, I have this emotion, I have this
Mhm.
hurt, I have this pain, whether it be a divorce, whether it be
Mhm.
entrepreneurial failure, or what you could see it as is a progress note.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
didn't work. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Data's in. All right, here we
Yep.
go. And instead of just using our words in violence, or art in violence, right? Or this emotional expression in literature, you write books. I mean, I'm like, come on, dude. You're showing people how to take not just pain, but failure, and going, all right, this is what I'm going to do with it through God. And I'm
Yep.
going to do it in the sense of being that leader, being that student leader that's leading, that servant leader that's leading. Now, that's the reason why I love, really, I love this show so much so far, because it goes back to the same emotions that how I found God, right? It
Mhm.
wasn't, I didn't, I would always seek God. My, dad gave me the book of catechism and my Bible when I was a kid,
Mhm.
but I didn't understand it until
Yeah.
really when we were in Iraq. And I didn't pursue it in the same way until really things started going really south, right? And through it all, even coming home and going through homelessness and all the horrible stuff that, veterans go through, what I learned was as soon as I open my Bible, I'm good, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not living this life for me or my emotions or for me to express them in a negative way. It's to say, hey, like I have two boys, right? I have two young boys. I'm here to say, hey, I don't have the answers. This does. And if you meditate on it, if you pray about it, if you become spiritual in your practice, not just in your identity,
Yep.
you won't fail. And
Yep.
even though you feel, like you said, even though you
Yeah.
feel like everybody's crying, right?
Yeah.
NASCAR,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like one person couldn't just no, nobody knew about NASCAR that day, right? In Denver,
Right.
you're right. It's horrible when something goes on. I was there for the Cannabis Cup in 2015. It was
Mhm.
horrible getting
So
anywhere.
you oh yeah, so you see it. Yeah, you
Oh
seen it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful town, a horrible layout. Like
Yeah.
just the way that things kind of come in.
That's put together so well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really, really bad. Like San
Yeah.
Diego's got its problems. It's
Mhm.
got some of a flow. LA is got its problems, but it's worked on its flow. This was like, hey, we grew up as a town, but we didn't
Mhm.
build out our infrastructure. And I was
Yep.
like, yeah, that's typical. That's
Mhm. Mhm.
typical.
Yep.
So
Yep.
in Denver, when you guys started reaching out to and building your congregation, right? What was the primary resource that you guys use to connect with people?
Mm.
Was it the door knocking? Was it the phones? Was the faxes?
Yeah. No, you know what? I love that question. Because really it was a combination of lots of things. So one, we got into the streaming when streaming was like still very expensive to do. Of course, not everybody can stream pretty inexpensively, or free in some instances. Back then, it was like $2,500 a month to get this big, huge computer that was your transcoding computer that it hooked up to it was all of this extra stuff. But I knew we had to do something to reach beyond just the traditional ways. And so I wasn't a big fan of direct mail because I just didn't think a lot of people check their mail. I think now even fewer people check their mail. Like you have people going once a week, twice a week, that type of a thing. And so I wasn't a big fan of that. And we tried it. So we really got into streaming. Secondly, we would do this thing on Saturdays called Take the City. And one Saturday a month, that's literally what we would do. We'd meet, we'd go, not. And the goal wasn't getting, salvation. The goal was invitation. Because sometimes you're doing too much. Like there's a process. Somebody's got a plan, somebody's got to water, that God brings the increase. Right. So if you're trying to plant, water, increase all in the same moment, what often happens is it just becomes an exercise in futility. And remember, 46 out of 50 for lowest church attendance in the nation. So a lot of what you're getting isn't, oh, okay, cool. Me and my family have been looking for a church. You've been thinking about, They're like, church, what are you talking about? Jesus. Is that Jesus's cousin? Like, is that, like, it's just, it's a total disconnect culturally, which is one of the best things that could have ever happened because it taught me how to reach unchurched and de-churched people. Unchurched people have never been in church. De-churched people were in church had fallen away. It taught me how to do it, which is why if you look at my social media, you don't see me in a collar. You don't see me, and not that there's anything wrong with that. I have all of that. It's right over here. You don't see me in a collar. You don't see me in robes. You don't see me in a suit and tie as much anymore either. You're right, and I love that. Like I love a good suit and tie. You don't see me that because I recognize the people I'm speaking to. That is not where they live, and Paul said it like this: I became all things to all men. Watch this line, that I might win some, which means everybody's not going to hear me. But what I have to do is do my best to deconstruct it in a way that people can get it and it's palatable. Because I love what you said earlier about understanding. That's why I do it the way I do it. Stuff is on the screen. I walk it down. I break it down. I go verse by verse, whatever it takes. Because to me, understanding is important. People getting it is important. So we would go, we'd knock, we'd invite. We did streaming when streaming was brand new. I did a lot of TV stuff back in that time because traditional TV was still a very a very applicable thing to do. We did a lot of that, and a lot of it was just teaching people how to invite people. Because a lot of people, again, if you don't teach them how to do that, it becomes, well, this is my personal relationship. This is my, well, but again, it's got to be something bigger than just me, mine, I. Got to be something than us four and no more.
I'm flabbergasted, right? Because when you say it that way, the me and mine mentality, right? I get it. The reclusiveness as a family,
Yep.
That's very, very, very isolated. I'm not de-churched or churched. I'm, independent church, whatever you want to call it.
I got it. Like,
but my family and I, right? We go back and forth with this. Is how do you reach people? How do you get onto their level? How do you speak their love language, so to speak, right? Especially with cultures, right?
Yes.
Where, hey, I'm not Filipino, but I have some knowledge of Filipino culture. I'm not Black, but I'm Mexican, right? My wife's Black and Mexican. But when we talk about races and cultures, it has to come from a level of mutual respect and understanding. Where if I were knock on doors in any Black community looking like this, okay, first and foremost, it wouldn't be, oh, this guy's here to talk about Jesus. Maybe something you roll up and light. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe that's what he means by getting lit by Jesus.
Right, let's get lit.
And before you know it, I get it. I understand it. I respect it. But for a man that walks this path independently, I am always happy to connect with the gentleman or any person that's serving God in the way that you are, because you make it easy for people to want to learn more. And that's where I love it. The way you said it is, if you're wearing suits and ties, that's fine. Right. But if you're not comfortable in a suit and tie, or if a person's maybe they had a bad experience with somebody in a suit and tie,
Yeah.
right? A lot of my friends, hey, if somebody walks in with a black robe, they're going to say, "Yes, judge." I'm like, "Oh shit,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
don't do
Yeah.
that."
Yeah, yeah.
That is not a judge. That is a moo.
Right. Yeah.
And because it's a reactionary thing, right? Trauma is trauma is trauma is trauma, and when you experience it, it's impossible to work on it alone. And that's the reason
Mhm.
why I always tell people, reach out to a church,
Yeah.
find a communicator of God, where look, prophets, prophecy, all that good stuff that Jesus Christ in the Bible talks about, it's out there. It's never
Yeah.
stopped, right? And Jesus Christ said, say, look, man, there's going to be people out here doing better than I did. You just got to
Mhm.
be looking,
Yeah.
right? And I'll be back. And that's pretty much, that was the promise. So
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I believe in it truthfully, because when I went through again, just recently, more and more and more stuff where I'm just like, hey, this makes me want to stop. This makes me want to quit. I don't know if I'm
Mhm.
doing it the right way. I'm not doing
Mhm.
it good. I don't know. I don't know. That internal questioning is a place of care where I
Mhm.
care. I
Mhm.
care, profoundly care, because
Mhm.
what I'm looking to do is save lives, like you said, change lives, but in God, with
Yeah.
what I have and the way that I know how to do it. So
Yeah.
it's a scary place, this world, but at the same time, I find it humbling, and I find it just an absolute blessing to, be able to share with our audience a gentleman like yourself in a church like the Harvest. And of course, I want to ask you a few more questions about the
Please, please.
books, and how do we connect with yourself in your church
Yeah.
and or like get engaged?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And let me just say thank you too for recognizing the need for voices. And the reason I say that is because we live in a culture that likes to decentralize. So the thought of anybody telling me anything, I don't want nobody telling me nothing about nothing. Yet those are the same people who are listening to everybody telling them something about something. And so I think it's important to understand, because that's literally, tons of scriptures, but one that comes to mind right away is Jeremiah 3:15. And I will give you shepherds, pastors after my own heart, who will feed you with knowledge and understanding. Knowledge is what to do, understanding is why to do it. That's wisdom, that's knowledge. Like that's his system. That's the system that was set up. And if you can create, if you can have distrust in the system that's been set up, and that's not to say that you just blindly follow everything everybody says. Like, so I said, trust and verify. That's one of the big things I'm about too. I'm going to give you scripture to back up what I'm saying. I'm not just going to say a bunch of stuff and say, well, this is what I think and this is what I feel. I woke up in the middle of the night and I was walking on the cold ice and this is what came to my mind. But I'm going to back it up. But thank you for saying that, because I think that's something that is often overlooked, and it makes it so difficult for people because they're trying to basically do surgery on themselves with no experience. It's like, well, I just think it means this. Like, you just got your scalpel, just chopping stuff
Yep.
up, and you don't know what you're doing. Like, shouldn't somebody be helping me with this?
Is this how we
Exactly.
do it?
Yeah,
No, that's not
exactly,
how.
exactly, exactly. And so, thank you for saying that. But people can connect all the social media platforms at Bishop Foreman, Foreman. We do daily reels that are inspirational. They're always filled with scripture, and they're always very practical, always speaking life into your life. Like, I don't even call my messages sermons. I call them life-giving messages. Because the sermon is something you got to me when you were a kid and you did something wrong. That's a sermon to me. To me, a life-giving message is like, I heard that. And even if it was, even if it cut me a little bit, it gave me life. And so that's what's important to me. And then our website, bishopforeman.com, we got books, music, messages, more on there. My first book that I wrote after that whole journey I just talked about, how did I bounce back from that financially? Well, I teach how I literally did that step by step, bouncing back out of that valley. It's called Making Money Moves, the art of getting your finances in order. Money answers all things. Over 15% of Jesus' words are about money, more than prayer, faith, heaven, and hell combined. So it's important to have those discussions and know there's nothing wrong with money. People often misquote and say, well, money's the root of all evil. The Bible does not say that. It says the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. So if you don't have use some money, you're gonna see just how evil things can get, right? You're gonna, you gotta do what you gotta do. One of my books is called Sins of the Fathers. It's about breaking generational curses. The opening story is about my stepfather, who he was an abuser, he was a womanizer. He served, and let me just say this too. Thank you for your service. He served in the army for a bit, but he ended up being just like his biological father, whom he had never met, womanizer, abuser, all of that. It's the opening story about how there's these things that are called generational curses. They're passed down and around. And how do you break those things? How do you become a curse breaker? That's in there. I did a book called History Makers. That's actually pre-released, brand new. Another one called Evolutionaries, talking about your evolutionary process, the person using the butterfly, going through the 4 stages of evolution. It starts as small as a sesame seed on a sesame seed bun. And by the time it's done, that thing is what we see as the butterfly. How do I survive each of those stages in my evolution process? So tons of books. And I'm going to just say this for all the men. I write my books for men, meaning they're short, fellas. That's the point, right? Because that's what that means, right? I write my books for men and women, of course. But listen,
Ah,
I already know if it's a and this is true for me. I like audiobooks. If you give me a book and that book looks, like this, I'm gonna say, okay, give me the notes. Put that in Chat GPT and summarize that for me, like that type of thing. So the books are really great tools, resources. But there's so many more things people can check out at bishopforeman.com. And for your audience, we got something special. We want to sow, again, just true to my nature, we want to sow into your audience. And so if people text the word bishop to the phone number 55498, we're going to send them a discount code so they can get a discount off of anything in our online store. Full disclosure, not one dime comes to me at all those church. Just like to say that I don't keep the proceeds of my book sales. I've never have. I don't knock people who do. That's not something I do. I just have always let it go directly to the church. So, all of that is there. But if they text the word bishop, BISHOP, to the phone number 55498, it'll send them that. It'll send them that because we want to just be a blessing to those that are in your audience.
beautiful. Well, we appreciate that so much because I know our listeners are going to text Bishop, BISHOP, to 55498
Got it.
and get your discount. It's going to be good because I'm telling you, guys want to read up on this material. You guys really want to get in touch and engage with Bishop Foreman. It's going to be something where I'm going to warn people because, like you said something right earlier about getting, it might cut you, but it's going to give you life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's something that I find profoundly important for gentlemen. So I love that you write it for gentlemen because, again, attention spans, right?
Yeah.
But the truth be it is most men that are out there having these issues, they're working, right? We're not just talking about guys that are, in my language, flojos, that aren't doing work, right? They're men that are trying to strive, but there's still that gap, or that
Yeah.
either that gap of understanding or wisdom where you don't know where to apply the messages that you may be receiving, that God might be like smacking you in the face and be like,
Yeah.
hey, you need to leave that woman, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Whatever it may be. Or, hey, you need to teach your kids better by example, right? The exact definition of what it means to be a good steward leader or servant leader as well. So I really want to kind of wrap it up with a last words or any things that you would like to kind of give our audience, and then we'll end up on your beat.
Yeah, again, thank you for having me. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your openness. I think what we talked about a lot, and here's what I would leave anybody with is this. Because the person would say, well, what is the thing? What am I supposed to do with what I've just heard? And I'd say two things. One, you still have a pulse. God still has a plan. There's a reason you're still here. And that reason is beyond just paying bills, having babies, and dying. That reason is bigger than that. And that's number one. Number two, that journey to understanding that, it's just that. It's a journey. And so don't beat yourself up because you haven't figured out certain steps, because you feel like you should be further ahead than you are. Like, who determined that you're supposed to be here, you're supposed to be there, you're supposed to be this, you're supposed to be that? I've discovered that there's this thing I had the first day I moved out. I was the kid who moved out of the house like 18, like the day of. Like, I was like, I'm ready to go. Right. And that's just my nature. And I still have it. And it's sitting right in front of me in my office. I had that from when I moved out when I was 18. And it says, life is a journey, not a destination. And I said, everybody, enjoy your journey. So even if your journey's in a rough spot right now, smile because it could be worse. Even if your journey is frustrating heaven, hell, and earth out of you, and you want to rip your hair out, or you're like me, you've been cutting your hair bald since 16, so there's no hair to grab. So all you can do is just do this.
Yeah.
Even in those moments, recognize that your life's not over. Your journey's not over. Your best isn't behind you. It's here and it's ahead of you. And here's how I know that. Out of all things you could be watching, out of all things you could be listening to, why in the world are you listening to this right now? It's because you needed this message. This video found you. This podcast found you. You didn't find it because you needed to hear that message. God still has a plan. You still have a pulse, and your journey, wherever it's at right now, enjoy it because it only gets better from here.